Give a pause so that I know that we're ready here and, talking to people and don't worry about it. So we're just taking a technical pause. Okay. And when you're ready, you can start.
Do I need the mic? Does this help?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Definitive, yes. Okay, well, nice to meet you. I'm a nutritionist and herbalist in Marquette, for those of you who don't know me. And the myth that I chose to talk about today was that alternative medicine is a last resort if medical care does not work. And I wanted to rephrase that to say that nutrition and herbs, since those are my modalities, can help with healing at any point along the healing continuum. So I envision a healing continuum where we have optimum health on one end and we have chronic disease on the far other end. And throughout our lives we may kind of ebb and flow and hopefully stay near towards optimum health. That's what we want. But there may be points when we don't feel so well depending on our choices and just what happens in our lifetime. So I wanted to make the point that at any point along that continuum, you can seek help and support from a nutritionist, an herbalist, or the many folks behind me. And I wanted to kind of support that statement by just telling brief stories or overviews of three very different clients that I've seen in my own practice. So the first client is a 31-year-old female school teacher, and she came to me wanting support for cancer prevention. She had history on both sides of her family with both her parents had cancer, all four grandparents had cancer, and so she was at a point where she felt like she was in optimum health, but she wanted to stay there. And then she also needed general support with stress management, which I would say all of us need support in that area at one point or another. So those were her primary concerns. That's what she wanted to work on. Her presenting symptoms were that she had insomnia and nightmares. Her hair would thin from stress. She would get dizzy when standing, which could be hypoglycemia, dehydration, adrenal fatigue. Dry, itchy scalp, bumps on the back of her arms. So all those hair, skin, and nails, tongue, all of that can point to things going on nutritionally with your health. She had mild depression and then mild constipation. So those were kind of the things that were presented to me, and I worked with her in just 3 appointments. And what we did is we kind of laid that foundation by establishing a nutrient-dense diet that was preventative, kind of cellular healing is what we would call it in my scope of practice. And we supported, or we emphasized foods that supported detoxification and also had anti-cancer compounds. So that all focuses on preventative care. We addressed the obvious, which was increasing water intake, added core supplements. Big one for her was an omega-3 that had a higher EPA content because that can help mood and nervous system. I requested that she have some lab work done by her primary care, and we found out she had macrocytic anemia and a vitamin D deficiency, so those can obviously affect energy and mood. And then that final kind of leg was that I gave her tools to fully implement a detoxifying elimination diet. So those were kind of what we addressed in 3 appointments. Okay, so that was example 1. Example 2, she was a 48-year-old female, raised a lot of kids and then did part-time photography. And she had actually had breast cancer, had a mastectomy very recently, and so she had gone from she was in that disease state. She had addressed it through medical care, and she was feeling good, but she wanted to keep moving more towards optimum health. So she wanted support and guidance on how to do that. And she was having regular lab work done by her medical doctor, and her most recent lab test revealed that she had high glucose. And so she had some blood sugar dysregulation going on. the chief complaints that she had is generally she felt really well. She was pretty much asymptomatic, had good energy, but she had just had this major surgery. And she had elevated glucose and hemoglobin A1C. So I look at lab markers, obviously. So what we addressed, this was just one appointment, was we balanced her macronutrient proportions. So she did a food diary, and we found out that she was eating really high amounts of carbs and not enough fat. So that can offset your blood sugar, obviously. But sometimes we need an objective opinion. So in her mind, she thought she was eating a lower carb diet, when in fact she wasn't. So that's where objectivity kind of helps. And then we added in some medicinal foods that can work on correcting blood sugar imbalances. So I work with foods more so than I would implementing supplements. I kind of hold off on that to see how the body responds from just correcting those imbalances through food. We added in a vegan protein powder because she was vegan, and the amino acids help repair and rebuild collagen after a major surgery. And then we refined her supplement plan. So she was already taking a lot of supplements, mostly of good quality, but I went through and made sure that those were all supporting her in the correct ways, and found out that she was taking twice the amount of folate than she needed. So I addressed that. She also had low serum B12, which isn't the best laboratory marker for B12 deficiency, but it's something to keep in mind, and I requested additional lab work on that. And so that was kind of what we covered in an initial consult, and she just felt like, this is great, you gave me the tools that I want to fully implement this on my own time, and I'm going to kind of take it and run with it, and so she did. So that was an example of kind of going from a disease state to an optimum health state. Okay, and then the final example I have, this client was a 46-year-old male. He came to me with chronic Lyme disease, and this is an example of someone who for 5 years had tried everything that he knew in his power to try to feel better. Went down to Mayo and saw 2 specialists, worked very closely with a primary care provider, getting additional lab work and supplements and testing done. Lab work and testing are the same thing. And so nothing was really helping him to feel better, and so in that case I was sort of a last resort. And so he came to me presenting symptoms of weight loss, shortness of breath that would progress to kind of gasping for air at night, chest pain, heartbeat, rapid heartbeat, heart palpitations, memory loss, joint pain, poor sleep, fatigue, and had a history of seizures. And so I obviously needed to work with him longer. I worked with him for 9 months as opposed to 1 consult or 3 consults, which were my prior examples. And what we did is we kind of, again, laid that foundation of establishing a therapeutic diet that supported him while he had this disease. So your diet's going to shift throughout your life. It can shift based on the seasons, your age, what's going on with your health and any underlying imbalances that are presenting themselves at that time. So he had a specific therapeutic diet. And then we integrated supplements and herbs to kind of just support his immune system and then reduce overall inflammation and then improve detoxification. Those are kind of the 3 main areas to address for Lyme in my scope of practice. And then I don't treat disease, so that would be out of my scope of practice. So what I did is I identified a Lyme literate practitioner that was open to the work that he and I had done and could offer complementary therapy. She did IV treatments of ozone therapy, which is another topic. But so he was getting that simultaneously, working with her, and then I collaborated with his primary care locally to just do routine lab work. So we could go by how he was feeling and kind of signs and symptoms, but the lab work kind of confirms and helped me see how he's progressing in that way too. So those are 3 different examples, and then it kind of segues into my self-help tip, which was, this stuff gets overwhelming. I may have overwhelmed you a little bit just by providing some examples, but I think that what helps has helped me, and my advice would be that consider each day you're having to make a series of small choices. Should I have this water or a Mountain Dew? Should I sit at my desk hunched over for 4 straight hours, or should I get up and go for a walk and allow myself a break? And so you have those choices. Those are in your control. And so I would consider that, just practice sort of mindfulness around that idea of saying, well, each day I, in my own control, make a series of choices that can move towards a disease state, or it can move me more towards optimum health. And the more choices you make that are moving you towards optimum health, they're going to kind of compound upon each other, and you'll move more towards that way. And we're not perfect, so sometimes we're going to make unhealthy choices. But I think in the grand scheme of things, it's important to know that the healthier choices you make, the more healthy you're going to be in the long run. So.